Hello, let's talk about central pontine myelinosis. Central pontine myelinosis. Wow, what a disease. What excitation. The medical students are jumping in the air. The nephrologists are cheering up. Everybody's jumping. Central pontine myelinosis. I love it. Let's talk about it. So, let me just tell you my belief. Okay, what is central pontine myelinosis? Central pontine myelinosis is the disease or the condition that happened due to rapid correction of sodium. So you have rapid correction of sodium that results in what looks like the myelin sheath of the nerves in the pons to demyelinate, and that results in a locked-in syndrome because the pons has all the bundle of motor fibers, and these motor fibers die, and then the patient ends up with locked-in syndrome where he can't move any of his limbs, but he can just blink or something like that. They also say that this happens about, or the manifestation happens about a couple of days to a week after the rapid correction of the sodium. It happens gradually a little bit. The manifestations show up gradually. And that's from the rapid correction. So that's the mainstream belief about central pontine myelinosis that you find in the books. Well, I venture to say that I believe that there is a syndrome like this, but it's not related to sodium or the rapid correction of the sodium, and it's not related to. I'm talking about the rapid correction of the sodium. It could be related to low sodium by itself, but not the rapid correction of the sodium, and also it is not, or at least not related to the rapid correction of the sodium alone. So, how is the mechanism? What's the proposed mechanism in the mainstream? The proposed mechanism is that because of the sodium in the serum rises so quickly, the water from the water contents of the myelin sheath just transfer right away to the or suddenly to the serum to dilute the sodium, so the water travels across the concentration gradient and stuff like that, and then the myelin sheath becomes dry and these cells die. That's the mechanism. Okay, so let me tell you about 8 reasons that this is not related to the sodium correction. Number 1, there's not a single. This is all, by the way, case reports. There's not a large case series about central pontine myelinosis. There's not a large randomized controlled trials, obviously, of different levels of protections, because again, that could be unethical and stuff like that. You cannot get IRB approval for that. There's not a lot of things about it. It's just case reports, and we don't have a single case report that actually showed that there's a central pontine myelinosis that happened in anybody with a starting sodium more than 125. So, if this syndrome happens because the water moves from the myelin to outside due to the rapid correction, it doesn't matter if the sodium goes from 125 to 135 or goes from 115 to 125. It doesn't matter. A rise of 10 is a rise of 10 in 1 hour. The water is going to move out. This is a chemical reaction. So you can't tell me there's no reason. That's the first reason to debunk this. It has to happen at all levels. Why don't we have it above 125? You think about it. I don't know. All right, number 2. This is over the years, the correction initially when that was discovered is that people said, okay, don't correct more than a half milliequivalent per hour, which end up being an easy calculation, 12 milliequivalent per day. So 12 milliequivalent per day or a half milliequivalent per hour. You send labs every 4 hours. If you correct more than 2 milliequivalent every time you send the lab, that means you're overdoing it. You slow down a little bit of what you do. That's it. It was simple. Now, the next year after that, or the next in a couple of years, that changed. It became 10 milliequivalent per day. Made the calculation much more difficult now. Who cares about the calculation? But why is it 10? Okay, well, and then 2 years later it became 8, and 2 years later it became 6. A few years later it became 4. And now the recommendation is to actually correct the sodium at 4 to 6 milliequivalent per day. Imagine if I correct the sodium 4 milliequivalent per day. That means if you come here with sodium of 101, I can correct you in 10 days or so. 10 days to correct your sodium. It's a project. And Medicare has to be notified about this. So, does anybody think why they keep decreasing the threshold? Of course, they keep decreasing the threshold because when people abide by the threshold, there are still case reports of central Pontine myelinosis. So they say 12 people are doing 11, 10, and they still see cases of central Pontine myelinosis. So they report it. So they say, okay, we're going to make it 10 now. And then they're going to make it 8, and then they're going to make it 6. And even at 6, there was some cases of central Pontine myelinosis. So that's why they made it 4 to 6. It's really annoying. So of course that speaks volume. Next number 3. The same people who tells you that you can't correct more than 4 to 6 milliequivalent per day, which is basically like what, 4 milliequivalent per day. That means like every 6 hours you're correcting one. It's about 0.15 per hour. 0.15. Let's say 0.2 milliequivalent per hour that you're correcting. That's what they say. Now, the same people that say that, they say also that if the patient is seizing from very low sodium, or if the patient is having sodium less than 110, the recommendation is to put the patient on 3% saline and correct quickly at a rate of up to 2 milliequivalent per hour until the patient stops seizing and or sodium is more than 110. So if you come in with sodium of 101, I will correct you with 3% saline. In 5 hours, you will be 111. So I corrected 10 in 5 hours. I corrected 2 per hour, which is 10 times the recommended dose or the recommended rate of correction that they themselves recommended. And people who we correct that fast, there's not. I mean, why are they recommending it? Because the syndrome doesn't happen. Seizure is more dangerous than the elusive central Pontine myelinosis. They know that. That's why they say when it comes down to very low levels or the patient is seizing, just all bets are off. Forget about the central Pontine myelinosis. Just correct 2 milliequivalent per hour. That speaks volume. That says that this is not a real syndrome here. It doesn't happen. People, we do 3% saline for many people with very low sodium and neurologic disturbances, and they don't develop central Pontine myelinosis. Many of them, hundreds of them. Okay, that's that next number. Next number, the neuro ICU. You go to the neuro ICU, the standard of care. I'm talking now as we're talking about the randomized controlled trials, standard of care. I'm not talking about maybe there is a syndrome that is supported by case reports. We're talking about standard of care. The standard of care in the neuro ICU for patients with increased ICP, like they already have injury. The standard of care is to give them 3% saline to raise that sodium so fast from 140 to 160 within few hours to shrink the brain and decrease the chance of herniation. How many patients come from the neuro ICU with central Pontine myelinosis? None. It's only the medical ICU that brings this stupid syndrome, right? So that's another one. Next number. When I see people correcting the central pontine myelinosis, if you read up to date, even up to date, they say correct at 4 to 6 milliequivalent per hour. And if you find yourself that you're correcting too quickly, what do? If you find yourself correcting too quickly, you give them D5. You give them D5, and sometimes they say give DDAVP. I give it once. I would never do it again. DDAVP, because they never correct again. It becomes very difficult. But listen to listen to yourself. How long does it take for the water to go from the pons, from the neurons, the myelin sheath, to outside, based on the concentration gradient? How long does it take? I took the sodium, I raised it from 110 to 120 in 1 hour. So water now moves from the pons, myelin sheath, to outside, to the circulation. How long does this take? Seconds to minutes at the most, where all the water will come out. So the injury, if you will, happens within seconds. Maybe the manifestations will happen later when things die, but the injury happened already. The cell's dead. Because it happens within minutes at the most. This is a chemical reaction. They measure this with femtoseconds. But anyway, it goes from one across the membrane. Maybe it'll take a little bit longer time, seconds to minutes. So giving water again and giving DDAVP again and actually putting you back at harm's way, if you will, if we believe that this is a harm's way, and just correct it again, and then find yourself that's correcting too fast again, then give them water again, then go back, back down lower than what you were before, for example, and then correcting again, and all of these things will result in just more chances. You shoot more shots. You're gonna kill the patient at some point. If there wasn't central pontine myelinosis, there will be central pontine myelinosis with this stupid way of doing business, right? So what I do is that if the patient corrects, just corrects. If the patient corrects and correct too fast, I stop what I'm doing. If I'm giving him saline or 3% saline or even water restricting him or anything, I just stop. Let the patient do whatever they want, whatever they feel like doing. They want to eat, drink water, drink whatever they want to do, they can do it. But I'm not responsible for the correction. I'm not going to be responsible for their injury, if you will. Moreover, why the pons? Why the pons only? This is number 6 or 7. Why the pons? Why doesn't every myelin sheath in the body have the same problem? Why not the cortex? Why not the myelin sheath in white matter or whatever? Why not the midbrain? Why not the medulla? Why not the myelin sheath in the peripheral nerves? Why only the pons? We don't know. I have no idea. Right? It doesn't make any sense. It needs more work. That syndrome needs more attention. Moreover, these patients, imagine their life, okay? Somebody who is failure to thrive. He doesn't eat or drink. He's old, sitting home alone. He can't even feed himself. And then, his sodium now is like 118, right? Then his daughter, comes in from Florida and say, "Oh, Dad, oh my God, let's go to the Chinese buffet so we can eat. Because you look like you're not eating well." The guy goes to the Chinese buffet, he boluses himself on salt, his sodium goes from 118 to 125 in 2 hours. Right? Do those patients present to the ER with central pontine myelinosis? No, never. Are there any case reports of central pontine myelinosis coming from the outside? Never. So you can't tell me that these people don't correct fast outside. They do correct fast, depending on what they're doing. Somebody who drinks a lot of water, the polydipsia patients, they drink a lot of water, the sodium goes down, and then maybe they stop drinking water for a reason or the other, or they don't have access to water. They correct fast. On the outside, when they come to the hospital with central pontine myelinosis, no. Alcoholics, they drink beer potomania or something, they drop the sodium so much, then they go have a family gathering and start eating, then the sodium goes up. Do they come with central pontine myelinosis? No. Central pontine myelinosis is something that we psyched ourselves into believing that this actually happens from the again, I'm saying that it happens, but I don't think it happens from the sodium correction or from sodium correction alone. Right? It just doesn't happen this way. It could be something else. Look something else. Maybe it's thiamine deficiency. Maybe it is thiamine deficiency. Same people usually who have low sodium, alcoholics and stuff, they usually have thiamine deficiency. And that is a nerve food, if you will. Right? Thiamine is a cofactor for the Krebs cycle in 3 different points, which means that the Krebs cycle are not happening without thiamine. So, and the nerves are one of the cells that has the highest metabolic rate, one of the highest metabolic rates. So it easily dies. So maybe that's why. Maybe that's why you have it in certain areas as opposed to other areas. We should look into the pons itself. Why the pons specifically? Because maybe the pons has a different situation than other areas. The myelin of the pons has different situation than other areas. What's this different situation? Maybe it's packed together. The blood supply could be limited to the pons because of maybe pressure from the cerebellum, pressure from the rest of the brain up front, maybe the fourth ventricle. All of these things could swell and maybe push on pons. The blood supply could be stretched if there's dehydration of the brain or swelling of the brain. There's some. Just have to think about something local there in the pons. I'm not advocating that I know the reason, the cause of the syndrome, but I don't think that it's sodium correction. Having said that, and not to be completely outside the standard, I correct the sodium by 12 per day. Just to be out. I don't want to be completely out of the standard of care, but I'm not going to go 4 milliequivalent per day. That's ridiculous. And I'm not going to go and correct people backwards with D5. That's also ridiculous. Correction 12 milliequivalent per day is good enough. If the patient corrects too fast, then stop what you're doing. The key is frequent monitoring. You will never predict 100% what's going to happen to the patient. You perform the frequent monitoring. The patient is correcting too fast. Stop what you're doing. Have the patient freely eat or drink or do whatever he wants to do, and watch the sodium. See what happened to it. If it goes down again, you can correct by itself. You can correct it again. If it stays what it is, hope for the best. And because whatever you're gonna give, water or no water, D5 water, is not gonna change anything. If there's an injury, the injury happened already. I think that puts a lot of doubt in that syndrome, or the cause of that syndrome, and I think it needs a lot more research than what we have right now, especially animal models. I don't know why animal models are not done, but this is an invitation for anybody who hears this to say, okay, maybe we can do animal research on central pontine myelinosis, see what happens. It's very easy. All right, thank you.